Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs?
What's up?
My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me. As always, we're back together again.
Yeah. How was your 4th of July, dog?
Wonderful. Well, actually, I'm not gonna lie. It was a fun day with the family. What was not fun was the incessant rain.
Yeah.
4th of July, I usually sit by the pool, tan up a little bit. Been hitting the gym. I was prepared for this moment, and it rained. So,
wow.
I got
all
another,
that hard work for nothing.
I got another whole year to prepare for the next time I swim in a pool on the 4th of July.
I was going to say you only do it once a year. Just the 4th.
Just the 4th. Yeah, so good 4th of July. Rick, how was your 4th of July?
Oh, it was great. I did nothing. I played video games all day.
Nice.
And it's a nice change of pace from
excellent
doing things all the time.
Nice to have a day off. I think I took 4 days off.
I was gonna go do things, but then it rained, so I was like, screw this.
Some of our episodes, in case you didn't know, have been a little bit backlogged. So if this goes out next week at some point, a week after the 4th of July, that's why we're talking about the 4th of July right now.
It's like July 17th. They're like, what are they talking about?
But the content that you're getting is all the same. The NFL season grows ever so closer. On the day we are recording this, we are exactly 20 days away from training camps beginning.
Uh-oh.
So you think mandatory minicamp hype was bad? Just wait.
Just you wait.
Just wait till everyone starts at once and you get to watch Sam Laporta highlights for 2 hours.
Oh gosh.
On Twitter. So, other than that, the NFL is slow going. DeAndre Hopkins is not deciding on anything. He's just kind of. I don't know what he's
chilling
doing right now. Hold on.
Waiting for training camp.
He's waiting for training camp. I'm gonna pull up Hopkins's Twitter account, see what he's doing right now, or Instagram account. Sorry, because he's active on there. Nope, nothing. He's got nothing out there. So I don't even know what D-Hop's doing right now. Not signing with the Patriots. That's what he's not doing.
He's not doing that.
So anyway, hey, if news breaks on this show, we'll break it and we'll talk about it live. But the last 2 shows, Rick and I had done. Rick, you did quarterbacks, tight ends, correct?
I did.
Oh, awesome. I did the wide receiver position. Last year, same thing happened to us, Rick, right around the 4th of July. These ranking shows come out, and we both had to do a show separate of each other. And last year, I gave you one of the bigger positions, running back, wide receiver, and then I got quarterback and tight end. So I said, you know what, Rick? Screw you. I'm giving you the bad positions.
You certainly did.
Receivers. I get to talk about wide receivers this year. It was fun. It was fun sitting here talking by myself about the wide receiver position. Ranking Jamar Chase 1 with no counter opinions. But anyway, so we've been ranking players. This is our last ranking show that we're going to do. The rest of our content is going to be heavily catered towards mock drafting and breakouts and other such stuff as we get you prepared over the next 2 months for your fantasy draft and prepare you for the NFL season, which starts in I think just under 9 weeks. So we are growing closer, ever so closer to the NFL season. But we're going to talk about our top 12 running backs on this show. Before we jump into that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this pod with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below. All right. And leave your 101 is Christian McCaffrey. Leave your second highest ranked running back in the comments.
Hey, what if it's Christian McCaffrey? There are people that still don't like McCaffrey for the injuries.
Really?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
if you have McCaffrey too, leave a comment.
Who's your one?
Who's your one? Yeah. So, like I said, we're going to talk about these top 12 running backs. We have a consensus here and some individual ranks. It's always better to have both of us on the show so that we have somewhat of an expert consensus. Rick, have you published your full rankings yet on Fantasy Pros?
I did.
Okay, I did too. I did that today, or beginning of July. So our rankings are live on there if you want to go find them somewhere. But yeah, so we're gonna give you our top 12 of those positions. So let's start with the obvious number one. It's pretty consensus right now. I like on Fantasy Pros, Christian McCaffrey's one. For us, he's one. I have him one. Rick has him one. To be honest with you, I think McCaffrey's one right now because of a lack of a better option. Not that McCaffrey's bad.
Yeah, he is.
But, like, there's nobody that I'm looking at going, I have to put this guy ahead of McCaffrey. There's nobody that I want ahead of him. And usually I can even make an argument for somebody, but there just isn't. It's almost like tier 1 McCaffrey, tier 2 everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is right now.
So why do you have McCaffrey ranked 1, Rick? I mean, enlighten me.
Yeah, no, you're kind of right. I think it's just because there's no one that you can say that you would definitively put ahead of McCaffrey at the running back position. And I think I would still have him at number 1. He's in the San Francisco offense.
Yeah.
He was really good last year with San Francisco, consistently getting like 20 plus points a week. And that's always been the thing with McCaffrey, as long as he stays healthy, which he did last year for the most part.
Yeah.
He's going to be the RB1. So he's not like some years you get like a clear RB1. I wouldn't say he's a clear RB1, but he kind of is a clear RB1. Not necessarily because of he's just way head and shoulders above everyone else. It's more everyone else is below him.
I think too, when I was conversating with Rick prior to the show, I brought up the fact that the quarterback and the running back position right now is kind of in almost in a transition period, because last year, for quarterbacks, there was like virtually no quarterbacks taken that could be of fantasy relevance. The only guy that's remotely close to that is Kenny Pickett. And so this year, obviously, we get C.J. Stroud, we get Will Levis, we get Bryce Young, we get some guys that we can actually invest fantasy capital into. And next year, we'll be looking at some guys at possible breakouts. So it looks like the quarterback position will start getting a little bit more talent pushed into it. Running back, I feel, is in the same boat, because you have some of these running backs that have been at the top. Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, starting to fade back. And they're starting to come away and break away and fade. Like Ezekiel Elliott, was he top 10 last year? Yeah. I believe so, right?
I don't think so. Or was he? I don't know.
I can't remember.
So, actually.
Anyway, but he was still drafted in the top 2 rounds. So, like, when you talk about the running back position, some of these guys that have been drafted high over the last couple years are now starting to fade back. And the problem is J.K. Dobbins and Javonte Williams and even the Breece Halls of the world all are tearing their ACLs and having these injuries. And so they would be in the top 12 if they were healthy, and they're just not.
Yep.
So, and that's also why you're seeing, if you're joining us just right now, and you have turned off, you've watched the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals, you've been watching baseball, and you're like, I should start getting prepared for my fantasy draft. And this is the first episode you've watched in preparation for that. Bijan Robinson is going as a top 5 running back right now. It's because I think there's no one else available to say this guy is better. So I think that's why there's not a lot of people challenging and why Christian McCaffrey finds himself in that position. Right now, he's ADPing at 2.4, so we have a wide receiver going 101. This is just the strangest year I've done fantasy football in a long time. It's been very strange. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that rant.
No, it's a new wave, man. It's the receiver takeover.
Yep.
The zero RB people from years ago,
Right.
I think, are finally getting their way.
They're getting
but it's just
your voice is being heard.
It's not just how fantasy has evolved. It's because of how the NFL has evolved. There's not really a lot of workhorse running backs anymore. Even a lot of these guys on this list, are they even really true workhorses?
Yeah.
A couple of them are, but 6-7 years ago, all the top 10 guys were like a true workhorse running back.
Yeah.
All the top 12 guys were true workhorse running backs. I don't know if that's really the case anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
And it's a passing league, so
right.
It helps receivers.
And I think as teams stop giving the running backs as much opportunity as maybe you see like 5-10 years ago, there were multiple running backs with the workload of Derrick Henry. And now there's just nothing.
Right.
And your window is 5 years before there's another guy that can take 200 carries. So it is a strange situation, but Christian McCaffrey is our 101. It's safe to say that he is the best available running back if you're on the board, and you're looking at a running back that high. Number 2 right now, and it's a similar situation to Christian McCaffrey, except I like Christian McCaffrey far more than I like this player. It's Austin Eckler. So consensus right now for us, he's 2. For me, he's 4. For Rick, he's 2. To me, the reason why I rank him lower than the consensus is specifically because he didn't even want to be a Charger 5 months ago. And he restructures his contract and he comes back, and obviously he's got like a very high ceiling for pass catching, but he's another year older. All he really does at this point is pass catching. It feels like the Chargers are trying to find somebody to take rushing work to get Eckler off the field so he doesn't have as much work. Did they draft a running back this year? I feel like they drafted a running back.
I don't think they did.
Maybe not. I mean, Eckler's still going to be fantastic.
They did have Spiller from last year, but
hold on, I'm checking now because I feel like Spiller and Josh Kelly. So it's the same situation for Eckler, but even last year on the season, he had a total of 265 fantasy points in standard. Hold on a second, let me change that to have PPR or PPR because I like it better. He was the 101 in PPR.
Right.
See, I was looking at standard, and that's where my rank came from. I don't know. Now I'm starting to change my mind.
Well, as someone who has Eckler as my RB2, I could still argue against him.
Okay, go ahead because you have him ranked far higher than I do, and now I'm starting to be like, maybe I should change this.
In the beginning of the offseason, I was down on Eckler, and I ended up ranking him at 2, but it's just because of what he did last year. But the dude is going to be 28. He had a career high in touchdowns last year, and in 2021 it was his previous career high.
Yeah.
And now it's partly because the Melvin Gordon situation and him leaving opened up things for Eckler. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if the touchdown production can stay at the level it will.
Yeah.
I know it's really hard to predict touchdowns, but it just doesn't feel like there was definitely moments last year, especially earlier in the season, where they were trying to give it to Isaiah Spiller. They're trying to give it to Joshua Kelly. And then both guys sucked, and they're like, all right, well, we'll just give it to Eckler. And I think there'll be moments like that again this year with a couple less touchdowns and another year older from him. But he's going to be consistent at least. Like where you have him at 4 is probably where he'll finish. He'll probably finish at like 4 or 5. He probably won't finish as the RB2.
Yeah.
but he's going to be someone that you can rely on a week-to-week basis because of his pass catching ability. But his ceiling, like I don't think he's going to be an RB1 again unless he has just another. Because he also had a career high in catches and targets last year.
Yeah.
You know, he had 127 targets. That's not happening again this year. Even though he is a pass catching running back, they brought in Quentin Johnston. Part of that was because they had no receivers last year because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were injured.
Yeah, both.
So there were weeks where he was getting like 12 targets a game with those guys out of the picture. With those guys presumably healthy and Quentin Johnston, he's Austin Eckler, right? He's still gonna get like 90 targets, maybe even 100 targets, but he probably loses about 25 of those this year.
Yeah, and I think, too, you also have to factor in, I don't know if you mentioned this, but the new offensive coordinator.
Right.
Kellen Moore. Did you mention it?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if you brought him up. And I was just not paying attention.
No, it's a good point, though.
But Kellen Moore comes in, and I think it'd be a two-headed situation where you have, like Rick said, the wide receiver depth was not there for Austin Eckler. I mean, for Justin Herbert. So, I mean, what do? You go to your best weapon on the field. It's Austin Eckler. So having more depth at wide receiver means that Herbert can now throw the ball to other people besides just dumping it to the running back or dumping it to the tight end, which I think he'll do because I think he prefers to throw downfield than dumping it off. But then you have Kellen Moore coming in, who his offense loves to spread the ball around. You saw it with Dak Prescott a lot, to everyone, even if they weren't elite. They also love to get Tony Pollard on the field on a regular basis, despite a lot of different people saying otherwise. And the running back they're having huge contract ramifications. So like they didn't really split the work, but they tried to get other people involved, and I think they'll try to do the same thing this year. I think that there's still a massive amount of opportunity there for Austin Eckler because there isn't a bona fide running back that can come in and take that work. But there could be a situation where you get to training camp, and 2 weeks into camp, Kellen Moore's looking at the running back room, and he goes to the GM and says, listen, these guys suck. We need to bring in Lenny or Kareem Hunt or somebody else. And if something like that does end up happening, I think that you're going to see Austin Eckler start to lose a little bit of opportunity, obviously. And in that instance, you're going to be in a situation where the Chargers are not giving the ball as much to Austin Eckler, and you invested a number 2 or number 1 overall pick for a running back that doesn't produce. So I love Austin Eckler. I think he's great. Like Rick said, 4 or 5 is probably a safe estimation for him, and that's why I have him ranked in that vicinity. And there are guys who I think have a higher ceiling than Austin Eckler does for this year. But obviously, if he could be the 101 last year with Christian McCaffrey on the 49ers, I'm sure he could do it again. I just think the chances of it repeating and happening are unlikely. And, with the running back position being the way that it is and people trying to get multiple backs involved, I think, Eckler getting, what did you say, 125 targets probably is not going to happen again.
Yeah.
He's basically wide receiver.
127.
So that's why I have him ranked 4. And Rick also has some of the same problems. But like I said with Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler is also that guy that happens to be being put 2 because no one else knows what to do at the second spot. So those 2 guys fall in the 1 and 2 slot on our consensus. Number 3 on our consensus right now is Jonathan Taylor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Jonathan Taylor, and you have him 5. I have him 2. I seem really high on Jonathan Taylor, and I am. I am high on Jonathan Taylor. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, embrace it.
At this point. So the Colts, obviously, they went through a lot of head coach changes over the last couple years. They bring in Shane Steichen from the Eagles, who kind of orchestrated. He was the offensive coordinator, correct? Before I make myself look like an idiot.
That is correct.
Yeah. So he orchestrated and built the offense that the Philadelphia Eagles have. The Colts draft Anthony Richardson, and we talked about this pre-draft that there was a chance that could happen. Did they draft Anthony Richardson? They did.
You got to really think about that, huh?
Dude, my brain is just fried. Like, it's the day after the 4th of July. What do you expect me to do?
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yes, they did draft
Yes,
Anthony Richardson.
yeah. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, dang, he's not saying anything. Did he go to like the friggin' Texans or something? Everything's all screwed up. Anyway, so we talked about pre-draft how Anthony Richardson could be that guy that comes in and that is that Jalen Hurts and is the offense that Shane Steichen built essentially for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's what you're seeing them build now. What that also means is they're going to run the football. And the one thing that everyone has talked about for the last 2 years with Jonathan Taylor is that the Colts do not run the football enough. It's always, Carson Wentz or whoever else they had at quarterback. They're throwing too much. They need to get the ball to Jonathan Taylor. They're going to do that with Shane Steichen. I think last year was an anomaly. They're going to play better football. They have a good offensive line. They have good pieces on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to be running it. I don't know if their offense is going to be super efficient with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, but I think that Jonathan Taylor has had worse quarterbacks under center and worse offenses than he's going to have this year. So I think there's good things in the future for Jonathan Taylor. I think what you saw in his rookie season and in his second year where he ascended into that number 1, 2, or 3 slot last year, I think he still has that, and he's still going to be that guy. And I think he's the type of player that has the best chance to be the next modern day Derrick Henry type player that gets 300 carries, but he can also pass catch. So there's a lot of aspects to Jonathan Taylor that are success. I like the upside that he brings. There's also a low-end chance that he falls like to 7 or 8 if things don't go well for the Colts. So there is some risk tied to him, which is why I have him not 101. But I think there's a lot of upside for Jonathan Taylor this year.
No, I agreed. He definitely has a lot of upside, but his low is very low. Like he is someone I'm very nervous about. Last year he only averaged 12 points a game. He was the RB 33. Now he did miss a lot of games. I think he missed like 6 games last year. So in points per game, though, he was not in the top. I don't think he was even in the top 10 or top 12. So there's a lot of question marks there. They actually gave him some carries in the beginning of the year, but his just yards per carry was not there. Like there was a game where he had 20 carries for 42 yards. There was another game where he had, I think it was 21 carries for 71 yards. So some tough games there. What I will say is the Colts had Jeff Saturday last year, head coach, for a lot of the season. And that offense was brutal last year. The Colts were a brutal team last year. My problem is I don't know how much better they are going to be this year. Anthony Richardson is going to probably be the day 1 starter, who we both talked about being like a project, a guy who will take some time to develop. And he's also a guy who's going to probably steal goal line touches from Jonathan Taylor, kind of like how Jalen Hurts does for Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if he's going to get all the goal line touchdowns as he probably could. But now, if the Colts offense is pretty good and Anthony Richardson has a great rookie season, then Jonathan Taylor could easily be like RB1 or RB2. But that's why I have him at 5. I just think there's way too many question marks with that offense, with the new coaching staff, the rookie quarterback, the team in general. I don't know how good the Colts really are. Mm-hmm. So there's way too many questions for me with Jonathan Taylor, but the ceiling is definitely there.
Yeah, and like I said, I think what Jeff Saturday did last year wasn't bad, but it was, it was horrible.
It wasn't good.
It wasn't good. And I think he had a lot to do with, it was just weird because the year before, Jonathan Taylor and the offensive line were really good. And this, this past season, the offensive line and Jonathan Taylor just weren't. So like something changed, something
Scheming
happened.
for sure. The offensive line, though, for the Colts is getting older,
Oh,
which I
really?
don't like a
Yeah.
little bit.
That could be a detriment. But
But they should still be good. Like they're
yeah,
still top 10.
if they get back to playing the way that they are, then Jonathan Taylor will have a really good season. And I think, or the way that they were 2 years ago, they should be able to get Jonathan Taylor to a point where he'll have a really good season. I do think that there is some concerns too. By the way, if you're talking just more on a like a micro level, about Anthony Richardson in the red zone and how that might affect Jonathan Taylor. I mean, obviously, last year it didn't super affect Miles Sanders in the Steichen offense. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a lot of rushing touchdowns, but this is a guy that there's not another guy in the backfield for the Colts, so he's just gonna run rampant until they, he either gets hurt or something happens. So he'll get a lot of work. All right, so let's talk about our number 4 guy. So we had McCaffrey 1.
We're number 4 now.
2, Jonathan Taylor 3. Number 4.
And there's 2 guys tied at 4. So
2 guys tied at 4. We got Nick Chubb. We'll just talk about him first. I have Nick Chubb 3. Rick has Nick Chubb 6. So these are running backs that Rick and I are just not agreeing on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
This is where the running back position gets weird. But so he's 4 on our consensus. I have him 3. Rick has him 6. Kareem Hunt's gone. That's all I really got to say. Kareem Hunt's gone. And if Nick Chubb gets the pass catching work, we all know what Nick Chubb was in fantasy football without a lot of pass catching work attached to him. Last year, he finished number 6 in fantasy football, 281 fantasy points. Now, he did get pass catching opportunities, but a lot of that went to secondary guys like Kareem Hunt. So last year, he had 27 receptions. If he sees an increase in his reception total up to like 45 to 50 receptions, this is going to be a guy that gets a lot of receiving yards, a lot of rushing yards, a lot of all-purpose yards, and a lot of all-purpose touchdowns. The entire backfield is on Nick Chubb. And there can be some concerns about injury because of workload, but I have Nick Chubb 3, and this is the highest I've ever had Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has always been Rick's guy, but Nick Chubb, he doesn't have Kareem Hunt in the backfield anymore, and there's no one else back there. So, like, it's Nick Chubb's backfield. Like, this is his opportunity. This is his time. Everyone has talked about, if they didn't have Kareem Hunt. Well, they don't. And now everyone isn't ranking him high, and I'm like, I don't understand it. So, I'm kind of interested to see why Rick has him a little bit lower, but I love Nick Chubb this year. I think he has a high ceiling. I think hopefully Deshaun Watson improves. If you believe in Deshaun Watson, you should definitely believe in Nick Chubb. And if things continue to go in a positive direction for the Browns, and Deshaun Watson ends up being good, Nick Chubb's going to have an elite year this year.
Yeah, it's sad because I used to be the Nick Chubb guy, and now it's like it feels like I'm not, but I still am. Okay, just because I have him at 6, you have him at 3, it makes it seem worse.
Can you name the second running back on the Browns?
It's Jermaine Ford, I believe.
Jerome Ford.
Okay, yeah, something like that. Yeah, no, it as of right now, it definitely looks juicy. But I have heard, the Twitter buzzes and the GM of the Browns have said that they want to bring in another running back before the season starts.
Ooh.
So whether that's Kareem Hunt, they just bring him back, because there has been talks that they might just bring him back just on a new cheap contract.
Okay.
They might bring Zeke in. They might bring Leonard Fournette in. They might bring one of these veteran guys. And yeah, I could see Nick Chubb getting a little more passing work, but I don't really think he's, at this point in his career, he's going to be 28. Like, I love the guy, but like he's starting to get into that range too.
Yeah.
And I don't see him at this point in his career all of a sudden being like a 50 catch guy. That said, I still think he's ridiculous. He finished as the RB6 last year, and there's a chance that he could be even better, because if you think Deshaun Watson could be good and you think the Browns have a good team, Nick Chubb could be a top 5 running back. I think it's possible. I just don't, and the reason I have him at 6 is I just don't think his ceiling, like, I don't see him being the RB, unless they really go into this year with this running back group, and like you said, he gets like the 45, 50 catches. That's the only way I could see him being like RB1 or 2. But outside of that, I think what he is, like RB6 last year, is kind of what he is. And he's great. Like, and people, I don't want to get the wrong idea. Like, if you can get Nick Chubb, that's great. You're guaranteed a top 10 running back. You're guaranteed probably a top 7 or 8 running back. Like, that's not easy to find. And I would want him on a lot of my teams. I just don't know about that ceiling. And it will matter. Like, this is somebody who could change as we go on to the offseason. Like, if we get to September, by the time we draft, like right before week 1, and this is the Browns roster, then I probably would move him up a little higher from 6. But I do think they're gonna bring somebody in, or
and you're within, you're straight in line with the ADP on Sleeper, so he is RB6 off the board then.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think I definitely still want him on my team. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 1,000%. If I have the opportunity late in the first round, early in the second to take Nick Chubb, I will obviously do it because I have him ranked 3. But, yeah, I mean, the age thing is a big concern. But I mean, I did this with friggin' Derrick Henry for too many years, so.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, like, unless you're Todd Gurley, if you're 27, you're still okay, I think, as a running back.
Yeah, for sure.
You're just approaching, you're creeping up on the range, because it'll be 28 in December.
Okay.
And then, like, we'll see next year and the year after that.
Yeah, for sure.
Dynasty, I definitely would be getting real nervous about it, but
right.
Redraft, he's still good.
All right, let's talk about the next guy, which is Bijan Robinson. He is 5th on our consensus. I have him 7. Rick has him 3.
I think there's one other guy that we skipped.
Oh, Saquon Barkley. Sorry. Saquon Barkley is 5th on the expert consensus. I have him 5. Rick has him 4.
Yep.
So he is slotting in right around the same slot. I actually kind of, I do have Saquon Barkley 5. There might be a situation where I move Eckler up to 3 and then Nick Chubb down to 4 and have a battle between Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley because I do really like those guys equally. Last year, Barkley was having a torrent first half of the season and was playing out of his mind. And then he kind of slowed down towards the end of the season and didn't really produce at the same level that he was, finishing as the RB5 on the season. But I don't really see anything changing. I mean, the Giants kind of, kept everything the same for the most part. They still don't have any receivers. Saquon Barkley still remains their best weapon on the offensive side of the ball. And so, I think that there is definitely a chance that Saquon moves up, but I don't think that he goes anywhere away from 5, to be honest with you. I think he's either going to be 3, 4, 5, or 6 on the season next year. And I think if you're getting him off the board at 5, you're doing pretty good. So, and there's always a slight chance that Saquon Barkley explodes and becomes that guy. This would be his 2nd or 3rd season off of his knee injuries.
I want to say 2nd. I want to say.
Okay, because last year I wasn't taking him because of the injuries, right? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean...
Last year was his first year fully healthy since, his rookie year.
Yeah, so, this year is his first full year back, or not full year, but he's now a year removed from that ACL injury, a whole season. So, that typically means good things for running backs and wide receivers. So, I think Barkley's going to be really good. The expert consensus has him at 8 right now, so they're a little bit lower on him than most, but I love Saquon Barkley. I think he's fantastic. He is also in that, I think he's kind of in that same boat as Nick Chubb. He's 26, so he's not as old. He's going to be 27 this season. So, you know what I mean? He's kind of he's in his prime right now, and he's got a lot of upside, but he's going to be a guy that gets a lot of rushing work. He's going to get a lot of pass catching work. He's your prototypical RB1. If the Giants offense becomes slightly more efficient this year, I think you could see some positive steps, in the right direction for Barkley, but he had, like I said, 295 rush attempts, 57 receptions. That's over 300 touches, which is fantastic. The big area that I see that is a difference for him is the touchdowns. He had 10 total touchdowns last year. You want to see that increase, but the Giants just aren't. Their offense is overrated, and I don't think it's that amazing. So I don't know that he can. I don't know that he can get a 15, 16, 17 touchdown season. But if he does something like that with this kind of production model that we have, like because he wasn't hyper efficient last year, if he's more efficient and the offense is better than we think it's going to be, and he maybe scores 15 touchdowns, he's going to be a top 3 running back in fantasy football. Just by mold. So a 300 touch running back going as the 8th running back off the board doesn't make sense to me. But I ranked him 5. So
yeah, and I ranked him even higher. I have him 4. I think it's I really don't understand that either. I think the only reason they have him at 8 is because he does have some there's rumors about him maybe holding out and contract issues and all that stuff, but I don't really think that's happening. Because to me, he was the RB5 last year.
Yeah.
And he honestly could have been better. He missed a game. He only had the 10 touchdowns. Saquon is Saquon. When he is healthy, he's like McCaffrey. There's not many guys that I would rather have over Saquon when he is healthy. And last year, I think he showed that for most of the season. He did slow down, as you said, but he still, like I said, still finishes the RB5.
Yeah.
And a great year. Now, you're right, though, about the Giants' offense. I don't really think it's a great offense.
Mm-hmm.
So his touchdown ceiling might not be there. Like the 10 touchdowns he got last year, that's probably what you're going to look at again this year. Maybe you can hope for a couple more. That might move him up a couple spots from RB5 to RB3. But I think the biggest concerns with Barkley is just the health still, which is always going to be. Like for a guy like him and McCaffrey for the rest of their careers at the running back position, because of the injuries that they've had, especially Barkley, you're always going to be worried about him getting hurt. But if he stays healthy, to me, I mean, he's pretty much a lock to be a top 5 running back.
Yeah, agreed. All right, now the next guy we're going to talk about, number 6, right?
Yep.
Is Bijan Robinson. I have him 7. Rick has Bijan 3. So this is the last of Rick's top 5.
Yes.
With mine being ranked lower. So Bijan is a great prospect. He was drafted extremely high. I love running backs that get drafted extremely high in the NFL draft because it's fresh blood, and you love to get those guys on your team. Now, lately I've wanted to kind of temper excitement on Bijan Robinson, and I'm still drafting him in the first round, and I still like him in that area. But right now, the reason why I want to temper the excitement on Bijan is because I still think the freaking Falcons blow. And I think Bijan is like Saquon in terms of his ceiling. And like when Saquon came into the NFL, what was he? Was he the number 3 overall pick?
He was number 2 overall pick.
Number 2 overall. So, like, he came in, he was extremely highly drafted, and he had a really good first year. And you would anticipate and expect that, from a guy like Bijan, who is the highest drafted running back since Saquon Barkley. And I think a lot of people do expect that because the Giants' offense sucked at the time when Saquon got drafted. So, there's no reason to think that Bijan can't produce that way. But I don't think we should just say because Saquon did it, Bijan's going to do it, and then draft him as such. So he's a dude that's never showed that he, can actually. He's never played a down in the NFL, and he is on a football team that has Desmond Ridder as their quarterback, and not a great offense. So they have pieces, but their offense still isn't great. So I don't even know their offense is good.
They have pieces.
They got pieces, but I don't like the quarterback's the biggest one. I don't think it's going to be efficient. I don't think it's going to look pretty for the Falcons, and I think that it's going to cause Bijan's efficiency to not be great. I still think he's going to be an RB1 this year. I still think you should draft him in the top 10. I still think he should be a first-round pick. I still think all of those things, but I just can't I can't rank him with the consensus. I move him down because of guys I like a little bit more that are in better situations than Bijan. So That is why I have him lower. But I think he's a great player. Regardless, he should be drafted in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Uh, and I think for I don't know how you feel, but I feel like the top 7 running backs, at least on my list, is like one tier almost, or maybe like McCaffrey's in his own tier, and then from 2 to 7 is like the next tier. So I don't think that's that crazy. And I have Beyond at 3, and it's kind of high. I didn't want to put him at 3, and I've been saying this too because I'm with you. I want to temper my expectations a little bit, but like just looking at the landscape of running backs, like
There's no one there.
it's really And then like I look at Bihan, and I think his usage will be crazy. And I was looking at Barkley's rookie year, what his usage was, and it was crazy. He had like 300 carries, and he had like 100 targets. Like he had 261 carries and 121 targets, which is unreal. He had almost 400 touches. And I'm not saying Bihan's going to get 400 touches, but I do think he's going to get a ridiculous amount of work. And the Falcons, I agree with you. The quarterback, I don't trust at all. Don't know about that offense in general. But you could look at last year and you could say, even though the offense isn't great, they had a decent running game last year. They led the NFL in rushing attempts with Arthur Smith. He's a guy who loves to run the ball. And they were up there. I think they were in the top 5 in total rushing yards in the whole NFL. They were 3rd in the NFL behind only the Ravens and Bears. So they are a team that runs the ball a ridiculous amount. So I think that will help. I think their offensive line isn't great, but it's not bad. Their interior offensive line is good, which is good for running, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know about their tackles, but their interior offensive line is good, so that's good for the running back. So there's some positives there. They've lined him up in the offseason at receiver, too, so they clearly want to get him a lot of targets. So I think he's going to just be involved so much. Again, he's risky. He's kind of like Jonathan Taylor in that sense where he could be really, really good, or he could be like RB13. But I'll take the ceiling with him because, again, he's a rookie, so they might want to use him just an insane amount as well.
Yeah. I mean, all fair points. Like I said, I still want Bihan in the first round. So, like, you're talking about, I mean, for me, his consensus right now in Fantasy Pros is 5. So, for me, I'm only 2 spots off that. You just happen to be 2 spots higher than I am. Or higher than the consensus. So
if I knew Barkley would stay healthy, though, I'd definitely put Barkley ahead of him.
I just kind of like, for me, my brain just kind of assumes health, like, most of the time. Like, I mean, there's some guys that I'm like, but at this point, all of these guys have been hurt in one way or another. So
except Bihan.
Maybe
that's what it is.
101.
It's yeah.
But anyway, I mean, like, he's probably going to be a great player. I hate bad offenses. I just can't stand it. And and like I feel myself drafting Bihan Robinson, watching Falcons games, being infuriated.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
100%.
But anyway, our next guy, number 7, is Josh Jacobs. I have him 6. Rick has him 7. So we're kind of in the same vicinity here with Josh Jacobs. The only reason why I have him higher than Bihan is because I don't actually think their offensive situations are. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays for the Oakland, jeez.
My goodness, dude.
How many times am I going to do that this year?
This isn't. When did they change that? 2018?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. The Raiders. I'll just say the Raiders here. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays for the Raiders, I think that Josh Jacobs will be really, really good. I think he'll be fine. But if he doesn't end up suiting up for the Raiders at all, or only a short amount of time,
it could get scary.
It could get scary for Josh Jacobs, which I think is the reason why he is not as high as we thought he was going to be a couple months ago. But I like him a little more. Consensus has Josh Jacobs at hold on a second, let me pull it up. Why are you the way that you are, computer? The consensus has Josh Jacobs at 7. So yeah, we're not too far off from that. But I think he's the type of player that I'm convinced that they're going to freaking hand him the rock and run it right into the ground until something happens that is not beneficial to your fantasy team. So they're just going to keep handing him the ball until he gets hurt, essentially, and they have to find somebody else. And I don't think his workload is going to change at all from last year. I think they would like to change his workload from last year because that's what Josh McDaniels always likes to do. But, Josh Jacobs is probably not going to have a workload change. He's getting paid too much money, and they, I think they, the team likes him, not necessarily the coach, but the team likes him more than, anybody. So, and he's one of your, outside of Devontae Adams, he's one of your best playmakers. So I think you're going to see Josh Jacobs get the ball a lot, and he will be efficient with it. And I think you can safely draft him in the first round with a good floor. He's one of the guys now, exiting this. Like, I feel the same way about Bihan. Like, whereas Barkley, Eckler, Chubb, Taylor, and McCaffrey for me are all guys that can finish at like 1. Like, they have a chance at finishing at the number 1 running back in fantasy football next year. I don't think Josh Jacobs or Bihan Robinson have a chance to do that. So, at least not this year. And I think it's because of the offensive situation that both of those guys have, as well as the fact that I don't know that Josh Jacobs is built for that. So, yeah, that's why I got him at 6. What about you, Rick?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I don't necessarily agree with Bihan with the ceiling, but for sure with Jacobs, I don't see him
think
being
in his
RB1.
career, Bihan has the chance of being 101. I just don't think next year is the year he's going to be.
No, that's fair. I just like historically, or not even historically, I guess maybe it's not necessarily true, but I feel like running backs sometimes have their best years very early. Sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's not untrue. It's just never in their rookie season.
Except Barkley.
Barkley was not the 101, was he?
He was the RB1 his rookie year, dog.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I need to change my Bihan takes.
I mean, you don't. I think RB7 is fine.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right.
You're fine there. But yeah, Jacobs to me, I have him at RB7. Yeah, I agree though. Like the ceiling thing that you're talking about, Garoppolo, that you were talking about, all those points are valid. He did have a great year last year, but I don't know if he's going to get the same amount of work just because it was so much. He had almost 400 touches last year. 340 carries is unreal. I don't know if that can continue, and I'm also not crazy about the Raiders. I'm kind of down on them. They play in such a tough division.
Yeah.
They weren't great last year, and now your big change is going from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I don't really think that that's anything. And Garoppolo might be injured. There's also a report from Tom Pelissero. Is that how you say his name?
That's how you say it.
It was like a week ago that he said if Josh Jacobs doesn't get a new contract, he could miss all of training camp and potentially even week 1.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he might actually hold out. So there's that. So there's a lot of negatives with Jacobs, but there's also, there's still a lot of positives. And to me, it's why I think he would be where my tier breaks, because I still have him in a similar tier as guys that we've talked about already, who are higher on this list, because he was the RB3 last year and he was just so dominant at times in fantasy and probably won you a championship or 2, or at least got you there. So I still like Jacobs. I'm still trying to draft him a lot. He's like a early 3rd round pick in a lot of best ball drafts, or like he's a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Which
to me is great value, and I want to snag him up in a lot of those. But yeah, there's still too many questions for me, and a ceiling as well. The combo of those two things is why I have him at 7.
Okay, let's rapid fire the last 5. The next guy we have is Derrick Henry. I have him 8. Rick has him 8, so we're kind of in the same spot on Henry. Derrick Henry, obviously, age is a problem. The cliff is a problem. But he's becoming increasingly interesting to me because he is currently going off the board as the 7th or 8th running back, obviously lined up with his rankings, but his ADP is 18. So this is a player you can
Interesting.
get in the second round, and there's a good chance that if he stays healthy, that he's going to get his 300 carries again. There's no reason to think that's going to change.
Right.
So, like, we're talking about a running back that could get 300 plus opportunities in the second round, which I don't think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Usually those guys go top 5. So I like that. And I'm not in on Derrick Henry because I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be.
You wait 3 years to be in.
I shouldn't be. But I think for me, it's like, at this point, the reason why I do think that if you had to create tiers for rankings, Derrick Henry is definitely at the bottom of a second or third tier here, depending on how many tiers you wanted to add. And then after this point, specifically for me, it's more or less, running backs that have an opportunity to break onto the scene and be really big time running backs possibly. But that maybe have already done it, but haven't gotten up to that top 5 potential. So there's definitely like a space or a tier break here between Derrick Henry and the next guy for me. But Henry's fantastic. He's still really good. And like, I feel like, injury is if this guy is one of those guys, I'm concerned about the cliff and the injuries and all of that stuff. But right now, he's not expensive. So I don't mind drafting him. But I think that at the end of the season, he's probably going to be 7, 8, or 9. And, you'll end up with a decent running back that has a lot more success than people anticipated.
Yeah, he's somebody who's interesting because the value actually is there, and I've found myself even drafting him once or twice in a best ball league as well. So far in the season, but
yeah,
and at 8, I don't hate it. I really don't. But since the 30 next year, he's 29 right now. Like that, he's at the point where it could really happen at any. Yes, an age cliff is very possible. But even ignoring that, his production has also gone down the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
When he bursted onto the scene, he was at 4.9 yards per carry, 5 yards a carry, then 5.36. Then in 2021, he went down to 4.28, and this past year he was at 4.41.
Yeah.
So he's no longer like a 5 yard a carry guy. He's not even a 4.5 yard a carry guy. He's below that. So his efficiency has gone down. He still gets the work though. And that's the thing is, as long as he still gets the work, he's going to still be worth it. But that's a concern as well. And then the other concern is the Titans blow. The Titans might be one of the worst teams in the AFC this year.
Yeah.
They feel like they're going to probably be like a 5 or 6 win team to me. I don't know. I don't think the Titans are going to be a very good team, and that might hurt his touchdown production as well. So there's a lot of questions with Derrick Henry, but at the same time, if all those questions are valid and he still gets 300 carries, it won't matter.
Yeah,
like he'll still be
sure.
a top 10 running back.
I mean, a majority of Le'Veon Bell's career was spent at like 4.1 yards per carry, but getting 300 plus opportunities. And that's kind of been a lot of Derrick Henry's success. The first year he broke out, in the last 2, he's still been fantastic, getting 300 touches, but hasn't been as efficient as the 5 yards. But it didn't matter. So I think it's good, but it's a floor play. Like if you take a risk in the first round, say on Bijan Robinson, or say on maybe taking a wide receiver early, and you take Derrick Henry, that's a floor play, but it's a good floor play, I think. With a chance that you get busted out. So as long as you're not doing it in the first round, we're fine. All right, next guy is Tony Pollard. Rick and I both have him at 9 right now. Pollard, really, really, really decent football player. He's always
sounds like a backhand.
He's always been good. I don't think he is an elite running back. He was kind of the same age as Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's 1 year younger. But he has way less work on his knees. The Cowboys have not added anybody to this rotation of running backs. realistically. They've flirted with the idea of bringing Zeke back, but we saw what Pollard did with a second running back last year. If Zeke doesn't come back, Pollard is going to be the featured running back for the Dallas Cowboys, and we saw what that was last year when Zeke was not on the field. So Pollard is going to be the guy, and I think that there's a chance that he could bump into the top 12. I think having him 9 is not bad at all. I think the consensus has him at 9 as well. I just want to pull that up. Yes, he is 9 on the consensus. So that's a safe place to take him. You know, I would personally put Breece Hall over Tony Pollard if the ACL injury never happened.
Agreed. Yeah.
I would personally put him over Derrick Henry and maybe Bijan if the injury never happened. But with the injury situation for Breece Hall, he's probably going to start off the season less efficient, which means Tony Hollard. Hey, new nickname, Tony Hollard. Hauling the rock to the touchdown.
Tony Pollard.
So anyway, Pollard being 9, I think, is good.
Yeah, he's good there. He was 8 last year with Zeke, and now potentially Zeke is out. Although I'm hearing again rumors that they probably going to bring Zeke back. So with Zeke there, I think Pollard still has a ceiling, but he's probably going to get a little more work, like he was at the end of the season. So he's still very good, an explosive player, good passing game, running back, and even with Zeke there, I do like him, but I definitely think there's like a teardrop there.
Yeah, agreed.
For sure.
We all know what happened with Breece Hall. He's 10 on our consensus. He also happens to be where is he on?
I have him at 11.
You have him at 11. I have him at 10. He's 10 on consensus. I believe he's 10 on the expert consensus ranking here on Fantasy Pros. So everyone's kind of got him around the same area. Like I said a second ago, Breece Hall was fantastic last year. When he was on the field and he was playing, he was ridiculous. I actually I don't want to spend a ton of time on Breece Hall, but quickly pull up his paced out numbers here just to see where he was headed before the injury. Because he was really good. There were times where he was like, Rick's team collapsed.
It did.
in the home league last year. It absolutely tanked. And it was because he started off at a torrent pace. He thought his team was rolling.
It was. Dude, I had Diggs, Chase, and Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Great trio.
And then Breece got hurt, and that was it. But for the first 3 games of the season, he had 6, 7, and 8 attempts on the ground. And he also had 9, 1, and 11 targets. So it was kind of like they were trying to get him a little bit more involved, and they were trying to find ways. I'd love to see a snap percentage. Right here.
It was 45, 27, and 51 first 3 games.
There were 3 games that he got a full complement of opportunities, and that was week 4, 5, and 6. Of that stretch of time, he had 312 rush attempts, 1,581 yards, 17 touchdowns, 34 catches, 663 yards, and 0 touchdowns. That is redonkulous.
Yeah.
For a rookie running back. That's what people think Bijan's going to do. So, that's really good stuff for Breece Hall. The big kicker here is the injury. And I really do think Breece Hall would be ranked top 5 right now for a lot of people.
Oh, he would be in my top 5 for sure. Yeah.
For sure, if he played the full season. And if he never got this injury. It's hard for running backs first year back from an ACL injury to have a massive amount of success. Really hard. So, to me, there's going to be a drop in efficiency for Breece Hall, but the question remains for me is, does that decrease in efficiency because of the injury get outweighed by the fact that Aaron Rodgers is now the quarterback and the offense is going to be more efficient? If that cancels out the injury thing, then Breece Hall can produce exactly the same as he did last year. The other question is, the guy's a first-round pick for the Jets. Do they say 17 carries a game is too much for Breece Hall? We need to get other guys involved. They've been in rumors to get Dalvin Cook. They've been in rumors to get Leonard Fournette. That has also been something that is there. So that would suggest to me that they don't want to give him.
They drafted a guy in the 4th round, I think. Right. 4th or 5th round.
So there's some questions with Breece Hall. And I think that he is a risky selection. He is a very risky draft selection in fantasy football. Right now, his ADP is 26.7 on Sleeper. So he's a guy that you can get late second, early third, which is a great value. I would 100% be willing to take the risk on Breece Hall in that area. But, man, he's going to be tough. Like, to really hone in on a projection for this guy because, like, there's just not there's so many moving pieces with this football team that it's like, are they going to add another running back? Is Rodgers going to be good? Are they going to hand him the rock 300 times? Are they not going to do that? There's so many questions with him, which is why he's ranked 10. And I think it's reasonable for him to be in that area. But I like him more than Tony Pollard. I like him more than Derrick Henry. I like him maybe even more than Bijan Robinson. It's just the injury and the other surrounding factors that kind of weigh him down on my rankings. So that's why I got Breece Hall at the 10 slot. But he's your guy, dude. He almost carried you to the first half of the season championship.
He's my guy. I like him even more than you do, yet I have him at 11, which is lower.
Hilarious. Why do we do this?
Yeah.
We did this with Nick Chubb
Well,
for years.
because I'm extremely nervous about the injury. I've seen it with guys the past couple years, like J.K. Dobbins. I'm trying to think of there's another example that I had for running back who tore his ACL and just didn't come back. But like it just happens. Like it takes a little bit, right? And even if he comes back and plays week 1, which is, by the way, still in question, he might not even be ready for week 1. But if he does, because they're optimistic about him for week 1.
Sayla said that he thinks he's going to play, but that means nothing. It's freaking July.
Yeah, exactly. But even if he does play week 1, I don't think he's going to get like 25 carries and be like a workhorse. Like I don't know. I think they might ease him into that. He also might not be as efficient. Like there's just a lot of questions this year. And yeah, I think Rodgers definitely being there helps because the Jets' offense should be really good on paper, or at least decent. But I don't know, man. There's just way too many questions. The injury just kills it. Because if he never got hurt, he's probably my RB 2 or 3 going into this year.
Wow.
Outside of McCaffrey. I think I could make the argument. Maybe Eckler too. I don't know, but he would be in that grouping for me.
Okay.
But with the injury, it hurts so much.
Yeah, no, totally.
Because I think efficiency is going to be down. I think his total touches will be down. I think they'll give it to Michael Carter. They'll give it to the guy they drafted in the 4th round. They'll kind of spread the ball a little bit. But I will still draft him because I like the player. And I do think with Rodgers being there, the offense should be pretty good. So I still will take that risk in the 3rd round, but yeah, I'm very nervous. Very, very nervous.
Agreed. Number 11 is Najee Harris. Rick has him 12. I have him 11. The expert consensus rankings have him at 12. Najee's a volume play.
Yep.
He's not.
So Steeler running backs.
Yeah, they're going to continue to give him the ball as much as humanly possible. His ADP right now is 31, but last year he had 272 rush attempts, 1,038 rushing yards, 41 catches, 229 yards. So he actually he played 17 games, but he had 33 less receptions and almost, I want to say 35 less rush attempts in 2022 than he had in 2021. So obviously there is some negative ramifications here. You would like to see him get back up in the receiving and the rushing department to get back to what he was doing in 2021 in his rookie season, because I think it would be hard for him to finish as an RB1 if he doesn't get that opportunity. But I think if he does get the opportunity, then that's there. And like I said, opportunity is king in fantasy football. So, even if he's inefficient with the opportunities, it doesn't matter. He's still going to get 300 touches. So, you want a guy like that on your team. Hopefully the Steelers offense will be more efficient, but that's why I have Najee at 11 right now. And in fact, I like him more than some of the guys opportunity-wise that I have put behind him. And so hopefully there's more efficiency and the Steelers offense is a little bit better this year, which leads to Najee being better, but he's definitely the worst of the top 12, one of the worst of the top 12 to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Najee, yeah. I mean, the inefficiencies last year and the offense being what it is kind of gross. But he's someone who could actually end up moving up maybe a little bit for me, just a couple spots, just because like last year he was RB 14 and had like an awful season,
Yeah.
and wasn't really as involved as he was his rookie year and all those things. But I do think the offense will be a little better. The offensive line should be a little better, and he's a workhorse. Right there, he's one of the few left in the league still. Even with his
Yeah.
work being down last year, he was still getting over 300 touches. So I think if you're getting a guy with over 300 touches in an offense that I think could be at least average, I'll still take that all day. Um, and some of these other guys like Brees Hall, if the injuries are, we get to the closer season, it looks like he's not ready to play. I could see moving Najee ahead of someone like Brees Hall. Um, so yeah, I think he's like a really solid. Like if you can get Najee Harris in
Yeah.
like the beginning of the fourth round, late
Yeah.
third round, he's a really solid RB2. Like I would be. That's one of the best RB2s you could have in the league. If I'm just thinking as it from we're at it from like a fantasy building a team.
Yeah.
Like you take receiver round one, and then you go Nick Chubb round two or something like that, and then you come around with Najee round three.
Hmm.
That would be a really good 1-2 duo. But as an RB1, I guess I would be a little nervous about him, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Fair enough. All right. Final guy that we're going to talk about is Ramondre Stevenson. I don't have him ranked in the top 12. Rick does, though. Rick
Yep.
has him 10. I have him 13. Our ranking together, consensus has him at 12. So, only concern about Ramondre is he plays for the New England Patriots, and right now they could sign Dalvin Cook and ruin everyone's soul.
Yes.
So, until that happens, obviously Mondre's got to be ranked high. But the reason why I have him lower than consensus, lower than Rick specifically, is because he is a part of the Patriots, and we saw Damian Harris the year he took over, right? And then after he took over, we saw Ramondre come in from the back. The Patriots always draft running backs in the fourth round, and then a year or two later, they end up actually playing. They have two running backs by the name of Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. And if you get to the end of the fantasy football season, you're talking about one of those guys, you can come back to this episode and be like, he was right. I don't want to draft or want anything to do with those two players, by the way. I'm just telling you, at some point in the season, people are going to bring up the name Kevin Harris or Pierre Strong because the Patriots just love to do that. Just love to do it. I don't know why. But I do think they want to get away from throwing the ball to Ramondre Stevenson through the air.
For sure.
They're going to give that opportunity to Ty Montgomery. Trust me, I watched this football team.
Or Pierre Strong.
Or Pierre Strong, yeah. And he's going to get the rushing work. Now, Mondre's going to get all the rushing work. He's going to get all the goal line carries. He's going to get all that. So he's going to be fine. He might even be top 12 for, in fantasy football this year. I don't have him ranked like that. That's why I talk like that. But I think that the pass catching opportunity that people think Ramondre Stevenson is going to get, he is not going to get. So I might be more confident in saying what Ramondre Stevenson is going to be after training camp is kind of over and the preseason has begun, because then we'll kind of see how the roster looks. They might have D-Hop, they might have Dalvin Cook or somebody else, or they might not have any one of those guys. They might feel comfortable with the running back room. Or Mac Jones could throw 40 dump-offs in the first preseason game action to Ty Montgomery.
Yep.
Who subsequently tears his shoulder tendon, and all of a sudden Ramondre gets all the pass catching. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's fine. It's fair to rank him that high because he is ridiculously good. Like, he doesn't have any breakaway speed, but he is ridiculously good. And this is one of those guys that I told Rick last year, like, he has the potential to be a high-end running back in the NFL because of his sheer, like, talent and ability. Like, you can just see it when you watch him on film. So I like it, but I just don't like the way the Patriots manage running back rooms. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And I think that's valid, especially the receiving thing. I've seen a lot of people use that argument of why they have Ramondre as like a top 5 back in fantasy. And it's like, He's not going to get 88 targets again. That's not going to happen. Now, I do still have him at 10 right now. I think that could change. If they sign Dalvin Cook, for sure he falls out of my top 12. But I think as of right now, he does get more on the ground. So even though I think his receiving will for sure go down, I could see him getting more on the ground, or at least what he was, and maybe more goal line carries. Like he had 5 touch. He only had 6 total touchdowns last year, and he was the RB7. Like, to me, that's really good. I think the Patriots offense, we'd hope to see some improvements there. I think we do with Bill O'Brien. So I could see him getting like 220 to 230 carries, and he goes from like 5 rushing touchdowns to like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of will help balance out the decrease in his passing game. But he's not somebody who's going to get like another 88 targets like some people think. I think he's more in like the 55-ish. Like 50 to 60, maybe.
That's definitely fair.
Target range. 60 is like, I think, best case. Like, I think he's more around like the 50, 55 for targets.
Fair enough. All right. Any more thoughts on these guys?
No, that's it.
Sorry for the length of this show, everyone.
There's a lot.
They clicked out after like the top 5. It's worth it. Top 12 running backs. Be sure to go back. Hear our thoughts on every single one of these players. Use it for your fantasy football teams. We'll see you later, guys. Bye.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.